What's good, Dreamers? My name is Julian Taliaferro, and I'm coming at y'all with the fifth monthly book analysis. So, this episode, I have it titled Varying Perspectives, and I feel like you guys will be able to understand why I titled it that as I go through the books. And I'm going to just jump right into it. So, to get started, the first one that I want to highlight is Global Tectonics, written by Fariborz, Ghadar and Erik Peterson. The second book is Triggers, written by Marshall Goldsmith and Erik Reiter. The third one is called Pawn Sovereignty, Sharpened Black Perspectives on Americanization, Africa, War, and Reparations, written by Ezrah Aharone. The fourth one is Survival Strategies for Africans in America, written by Anthony T. Browder. And then the last one is called Ahead of the Curve, a common sense guide to forecasting business and market cycles, written by Joseph H. Ellis. So these were all some pretty good books, but to start off and begin, I want to go with Global Tectonics, written by Fariborz, Ghadar and Erik Peterson. And as you guys can see, it was a pretty short book, pretty thin. And what the book did was talk about the 12 factors that have the power to change the global landscape and affect your business. And it wanted to serve as a somewhat of a warning for senior managers to be aware of these 12 factors and how they can affect your business. So I'm going to go through the 12, them being population, urbanization, disease and globalization, resource management, environmental degradation, economic integration, knowledge dissemination, information technology, biotechnology, nanotechnology, conflict, and governance. So, what the authors did was take these 12 tectonics and then dive a little bit deeper into explanations on how they can affect the global landscape and your business. But what I took from it, my main takeaway was just how the things that can affect your business is never singular, and is not just a competitor coming in with a new product that can disrupt your industry. A lot of times it can be something like health. As we just faced that COVID-19 crisis, it can be something like overpopulation or a decrease in population. It can be something like the new development of AI and information technology. So it's never singular, and it can come from all over the place. So as a business owner or somebody in business, you just always need to be aware of and cognizant of how these different factors could have either an indirect or a direct influence on your business. So that was the first book, Global Tectonics, written by Fariborz, Ghadar and Erik Peterson. The second book that I want to talk about is Triggers, written by Marshall Goldsmith and Erik Reiter. And this was about finding your trigger and knowing about how does your environment affect you, right? Be able to pinpoint these triggers and then make a change. And it was about emphasizing how not to be a victim, but how to take control of your life. So the author had a very interesting exercise in the book that he highlighted that he did, every single day, and it was called Daily Questions. So he would go through his day, and at the end of it, he would call somebody, and he would then go through his daily questions. And his daily questions would be something like, did I treat my wife well today? Did I give her affirmations of how sweet she is or how much I love her? And he would rate himself 1 to 5. He would then go through the second question on, did he treat his coworkers gracefully today? Rated on 1 to 5. Maybe a third question was, did I do my best to work out physically today? Rate that 1 to 5. And after that day, he'd be able to evaluate himself on all the factors that he would want to and see the areas of improvement. And as he did this every day, he could see how he changed, he could see how he grew, and how he improved, right? So it was a very interesting exercise, and I thought it was very helpful. It's not something that I personally implemented, but it is something that I think about, here and there on a day-to-day basis when I want to evaluate, how did I function that day? What are my daily questions, right? What do I want to ask myself when I lay my head down to sleep every single night? So something to think about. And the key is just to be honest with yourself. So when you do go through these daily questions, you're not lying. So when you do rate yourself, if you put up a 1 rating performance, you have to say that you put up a 1 rating performance. So the next day, if you did a 5, then you can see the significance of that. So that is the second book, Triggers, written by Marshall Goldsmith and Erik Reiter. And then now with the third book, Upon Sovereignty, written by Ezrah Aharone. This was a compelling book, and me reading it as a black man, I felt like it was pretty deep in the sense that it talked about slavery, but how slavery made such a deep impact on African Americans, and that now, as we are faced with systemic racism, but the impact of slavery is so much more, right? And we have to know that, and we can't forget that, right? So he also stated how Africa, the whole continent, used to be a mecca, have all these blossoming cities and technological civilizations even before Greece and Rome. And for me to hear that, it was amazing, because this isn't something that I learned in school. You don't learn about the blossoming civilizations of Africa in school, but you learn about Greece and Rome. So for me to be educated on that was, pretty great. And then when it comes to the current date, he was saying how, as African Americans here in the United States, we need to build connections back with Africa. And the way is through economic empowerment and economic power. And that will allow us to stay united. And we need to focus on building that community and standing together as a collective. And just to never forget what has happened in the past, because that has made us, as a group, who we are, and changed how we move, and how people look, how people treat us, and things like that. So just something to always be aware of. And pretty interesting book. Learned a lot of things. Again, it's called Pawn Sovereignty, Sharpened Black Perspectives on Americanization, Africa, War, and Reparations, written by Ezrah Aharone. And then the fourth book is Survival Strategies for Africans in America, written by Anthony T. Browder. And what this did was give me an understanding on how cultures are different, right? How the cultures from different continents, have different flavors, and that they're not all the same, and that the values are somewhat different. And when it comes to Africa, our African culture holds values that, reinforce the family, put the family up front, have a culture of respecting women, and pushing for excellence. And that was great to hear, honestly, knowing what my culture is derived from. But it's also how, as we're here today, we need to control our minds, not be influenced by, let's say, a negative stereotype of a media upon ourselves, but just continue to learn more and more about ourselves, take care of ourselves, learn about our history, and just stay in tune with African culture, and stay in tune with African American culture and Black culture, and who we are, right? So uh, that was the book, Survival Strategies, written by Anthony T. Browder. And the last book that I want to talk about is Ahead of the Curve, written by Joseph H. Ellis. And this was about like the stock market. So it was saying how you can somewhat forecast or know when a change in the market may happen. And what the author stated was how there are indicators that can show, let's say, maybe a recession or a bear and bull market, and there is an indicator for that. But then there was a pre-indicator that would showcase that first indicator. So for example, consumer spending, a change or fluctuation in that then led or showcased, or sorry, a change in consumer spending was an indicator, early indicator of a change in infrastructure. And then the infrastructure was an early indicator of capital spending. So it was kind of like a domino effect, and you are able to see the indicators continually go back, and then you can use that to then forecast the stock market. So, I'm not investing yet in stocks, but it was at least, um, a interesting book to read, on the stock market, and it kind of changed how I would think about investing or my investment strategies. So that was that book, and it also just stated, to look at long time spans. Don't look at short, segmented, graphs of, let's say, how a market performed or how a company performed. You need to draw out that graph to 10, 20 years, maybe even longer than that, so you can see the full cycle of these markets and see how they are affected over time. Uh, so again, that was ahead of the curve. A Common Sense Guide to Forecasting Business and Market Cycles by Joseph H. Ellis. So, overall, for this book review, it allowed me to see varying perspectives, right? Just like the title, it allowed me to look at things differently, whether it's from the view of a black man looking at my history, my past, whether it's changing my perspective on the stock market and, how do I invest, or how do I have an edge over the market itself, or even changing my perspective as an entrepreneur and looking at the global landscape and seeing how, disease, famine, or, weather changes and natural disasters can have an effect on my business. So that was this book episode. So, all right, let's get it, y'all. Going to achieve your 99 dream. And it's 99 dream because you are going to achieve your dream. And it would be 100%, but nothing is perfect. So you're going to achieve 99% of that. And let's go and let's get it.